Hello friends, welcome to my channel Study Corner. So today we are discussing about the gravitation, that means the history of a gravitation. For that, if we are discussing about the Aristotle, so in Galileo's time, people believed that what Aristotle said, that means the heavier objects falls faster than the lighter ones. From the image, we can understand that, let's say there is a two balls are there, in which the first one which is lighter one and the second one which is heavier one. So if this falls together, the heavier objects which falls faster than the lighter ones. But Galileo corrected the several fundamental misconceptions in Aristotle's physics using experiments, mathematics and observations. Galileo, he recognized all bodies irrespectively of their masses m are accelerated towards the earth with a constant speed. Mass doesn't affect the falling speed. And the third one, all the objects fall at the same rate if we ignore the air resistance. So these are all 3 points given by the Galileo, and even he tested these ideas with the experiment which is rolling ball down inclined plane. Even the study of the space in ancient time played a key role in shaping the history of a gravitation. Ptolemy, 2000 years ago, gave a statement and known for his geometrical models of universe which place Earth at the center. Ancient model proposed by Ptolemy around 150 AD. It stayed popular for over 1400 years until the Copernicus proposed the sun center model. Now Ptolemy model, which is very simpler one, he believed that Earth at the center and all the planets and the sun revolving around the Earth. Now Aryabhatta from India around 500 CE said that Earth rotates on its axis, explaining the day and night. He hinted that the Earth might move, but he did not clearly say that the sun is at the center of the universe. His model was a very advanced for his time. For that, after Copernicus from Poland around 1500 CE clearly said that the sun is at the center and all the planets including the earth revolves around the sun, model named as heliocentric model given by the Copernicus. After that, Tycho Brahe. Even the Tycho Brahe, known for extremely accurate astronomical observations without telescope, he observed the supernova in 1572 known as the Tycho's supernova. From John Kepler's, he worked as a Tycho Brahe's assistant. After Tycho's sudden death, from the Tycho Brahe's precious data, Kepler discovers his famous laws. And John Kepler used the detailed planetary observations made by Tycho Brahe and gives the 3 laws, which is known as the first law, second law and the third law given by John Kepler. Before going for the 3 laws, first understand the basic things related to the ellipse, which is also an important one. So here is a given picture of the ellipse, the major axis and the minor axis. First of all, we are understanding about the major axis and the minor axis. For that, semi-major axis, it's a longest distance from one end to the other ends of the ellipse. Semi-minor axis, shortest distance perpendicular to the major axis. Now if we are discussing about the foci, then 2 points inside the ellipse, let's say this one and this one, which are 2 foci of the given ellipse. Center, so this midpoint is called a center point of this ellipse. Now if we are discussing about the perihelion and aphelion, so for that, in the given picture, the perihelion is a point where the orbiting body is closest to the sun. And if we are discussing about the aphelion, so it is the point where it is farthest. So this is the basic detail related to the ellipse. Now let's understand the Kepler's first law. Kepler's first law. It states that the planets orbit the sun in elliptical path with the sun at one focus of the ellipse. If you are observing the figure, it states that, and if you are taking any one example, then Earth orbit is slightly elliptical, not a perfect circle. If you are observing the figure, so its orbit is not a perfect circle, it's a kind of a elliptical. Now second one, the sun isn't at the center but a bit off the side. That means the sun is not at the center but a bit of the side. And the third statement, that's why the earth is little closer to the sun in January and farther in July. Now the second law of Kepler, which is a line joining a planet and the sun sweeps out equal area in equal time. That means this area, if you are considering, and this area which is equal. Let's say if you have to take any example, when the earth is closer to the sun in January, it moves faster in the orbit. When earth is farther to the sun in July, it moves slower in orbit. That means, but the area swept out, the time in both is the same. And the last one, Kepler's third law. It states that the square of a planet's orbital period t square is proportional to the cube of its average distance from the sun, which is a cube. In a simple way, if we have to say that the square of a planet's orbital period around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of its elliptical orbit. For the statement purpose, we can write like this: t square proportional to the a cube. So in simple way, t square divided by a cube is equals to constant for all the planets. Let's take one example for that. If we are taking the two planets, Earth and the Jupiter. So Earth is a 1 AU astronomical unit away from the sun. So it takes the 1 year to complete the one orbit. For the same, if we are taking the Jupiter, then Jupiter is about 5.2 AU astronomical unit away from the sun. So it takes 12 years to complete the one orbit. That means the difference is here, 1 year and the 12 year. For that, if we are taking the 5.2's cube, that is 140.6, and again 12 square, which is the time, then it is 144, which is very closer one. So the planets farther from the sun moves slower and take more time. So this is the information related to the third law of Kepler's. So these are all three laws of the Kepler's.